The ground shook as Ryan moved through the ruins of the old colony. Smoke drifted in the sky, mixing with the red dust that storms often carried across the broken surface. He was part of a patrol sent to clear the area of stragglers, both human and Zoran. The war had turned this once bright place into shattered stone and twisted metal. Still, he kept his grip tight on his weapon, eyes scanning for movement. Ryan was younger than most in his unit. His simple brown eyes carried both caution and hope, a rare balance in days like these. He had joined the Earth Defense not because he hated the Zoran, but because he wanted to protect others. Now, standing in a ruined street where children once played, he wondered if protection and destruction had grown too close together. His squad leader, a tall man named Dorn, signaled for silence. The soldiers moved forward in small steps. The air was thick and heavy. Somewhere, faint sounds echoed like broken glass being stepped on. Ryan's heart picked up its pace. Then he saw it. Between fallen walls and scattered rubble, a figure crouched. At first, he thought it was another soldier. But when the shape shifted and turned, he realized it was much smaller. A Zoran child stood there, eyes wide and glowing faintly blue in the dust-filled air. Its arms were thin and its skin shimmered with faint scales that reflected what little sunlight passed through the smoke. The child looked no older than 7 in human terms. It trembled, clutching a broken piece of metal as if it could keep the world away. Dorn's voice was low but sharp. "Target ahead, Zoran, move in." Ryan froze. His mind screamed against the order. This was not a warrior. This was not a threat. It was a child who had somehow been left behind when armies swept through. The others raised their rifles. Time slowed for Ryan. He thought of the villages back home, of children laughing in fields, of faces untouched by war. He could not let the same fear take this small one's life. His body moved before thought caught up. "Wait," he said, stepping forward, arms outstretched. The squad glanced at him in disbelief. Dorn frowned, his hand tightening on his weapon. "Stand down, Ryan, that is the enemy." But the child stumbled back, tripping on the stone, eyes watering in silent terror. Ryan could see it was not holding a weapon, only a scrap of defense against a world that wanted it gone. He dropped his rifle. The metal hit the ground with a hard sound that echoed through the empty street. The soldiers gasped. "Ryan, what are you doing?" One of them hissed. He did not answer. Instead, he stepped closer to the child, lowering himself to his knees so he would not tower over it. "It's all right," he said in a calm voice, even though he knew the child did not understand human words. Tone was universal, he hoped. His hand stayed open, palms showing nothing hidden. The child blinked at him. Its small frame shook, but its grip on the scrap of metal loosened just a little. A shout rang from above. Another squad had spotted movement from the rooftops. Fire burst from distant rifles. Ryan's body reacted on instinct. He threw himself forward, wrapping his arms around the small alien, pulling it down to the ground. Dust rose as bullets struck the stone nearby. His squad scrambled for cover, but Ryan focused only on the small life pressed against him. The child whimpered, but it was alive. He held it tighter, shielding it with his own body. Every part of him screamed with fear, but also with a strange calm. This was the right choice. The gunfire stopped after a few breaths that felt like hours. Dorn's angry voice cut through the silence. "You could have been killed. And for what?" "That thing?" Ryan rose slowly, still holding the child. The Zoran's small hands clutched at his uniform, as if it knew safety was rare but had somehow found it here. He met Dorn's glare. "It's not a thing. It's a child." The squad looked uncertain. Some lowered their weapons. Others shook their heads. None stepped forward to take the child away. Ryan stood firm, dust covering his face but his eyes steady. "If we destroy children, what are we protecting? What are we fighting for?" The silence that followed was heavy. The war had hardened hearts, but Ryan's words carried weight that could not be ignored. Dorn finally growled and turned away. "We'll discuss this back at command. For now, move." Ryan adjusted his grip on the child. It was light, almost weightless, yet in that moment it felt heavier than any burden he had ever carried. The alien looked up at him, its glowing eyes calmer now. Something in that gaze spoke without language. Gratitude. Trust. The squad marched on and Ryan walked with them, the child in his arms. The battlefield felt different now. He no longer saw only ruins and enemies. He saw a chance, however small, that even in war humanity could rise above fear and prove itself worthy of more than survival. And though he did not yet know it, His choice had been seen. Far away, watching through hidden eyes, someone marked his action, someone who would come to claim him not as an enemy, but as something more. The march back to the human outpost was long and heavy. Dust swirled in the air as Ryan carried the small Zoran child in his arms. Each step made his thoughts louder. He could feel the stares of his squad on his back. Some were filled with judgment, others with confusion. None spoke openly, but silence often spoke more than words. The outpost was built into the remains of an old mining station. Tall walls of metal sheets surrounded the camp. Searchlights turned slowly, painting circles across the broken land. When the squad reached the gate, the guards stiffened at the sight of the alien child. Whispers spread quickly. Inside the command hall, the officers demanded answers. Dorn stood tall, voice firm, explaining how Ryan had acted against direct orders. Ryan did not try to defend himself with excuses. He only said one line, "It was a child, sir. I could not let it die." The officers exchanged sharp looks. The war with the Zoran had cost many lives. To them, compassion was dangerous, even foolish. Yet none could erase the image of the small one clinging to Ryan's uniform. Finally, they ordered the child to be kept in a holding shelter until a decision could be made. Ryan was warned not to act without orders again. That night, Ryan could not sleep. He sat near the shelter, listening to the faint sounds of the child moving inside. Its glowing eyes sometimes looked out through the bars, not with anger but with quiet fear. He whispered soft words, hoping his calm tone would bring comfort. Morning came, and with it came something no one expected. The alarms sounded across the outpost. Soldiers rushed to the walls, weapons ready. Ryan followed, heart pounding. From the far hills, a single figure approached. The rising sun glowed behind her, turning her tall frame into a silhouette. As she drew nearer, her features became clear. She was Zoran, towering and proud. Her skin shimmered with silver and blue, her movements graceful yet strong. Unlike the soldiers who wore armor, she wore only a flowing garment made of woven strands that glowed faintly like starlight. Her eyes were deep blue, glowing brighter than the child's. The soldiers tensed, weapons aimed. Yet the figure did not carry a weapon. She walked with steady steps, her gaze fixed on the camp. Ryan's breath caught. Something inside him knew before anyone said it. This was the child's mother. The commander ordered the gates shut, but the figure stopped just outside the walls. Her voice rang out, not loud, yet it carried easily through the air. Her language was Zoran, but translators on the walls quickly caught the meaning. "Return, my child." The commander stood at the wall and shouted back, "You have no right to stand here. Leave or you will be forced away." The mother raised her head unshaken. "I saw the one who shielded my young. He carries a heart unlike the rest. By our law, a bond has been made. The protector of my child belongs to my family." The camp erupted in confusion. Soldiers shouted, some laughed in disbelief, others whispered with unease. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He did not understand their customs, but he understood one thing. She was speaking about him. The commander sneered. "Your law means nothing here. Leave at once," but the mother did not step back. Her glowing eyes swept across the humans until they stopped on Ryan. In that moment, he felt as if the world had fallen silent. Her gaze was not hostile. It was steady, filled with respect and something else, claim, as though she had already decided his place. The commander barked orders and the gates were reinforced. Soldiers prepared in case she tried to force her way in, yet she did not move. She stood calmly as if waiting. Ryan spent the rest of the day in turmoil. The child had been returned to her shelter, but she paced restlessly, sensing her mother's presence. Ryan watched her small hands press against the barrier, and his heart ached. He thought of what Lura, though he did not yet know her name, had said about bonds. Could saving one life truly tie two paths together? As night fell, the figure remained outside the gates, unmoving like a statue beneath the stars. Soldiers grew restless, muttering that she might be calling for reinforcements. The commander dismissed the idea. If she wanted an attack, it would have come already, he said. Later, while others slept, Ryan walked quietly to the walls. The watchman gave him a puzzled look but allowed him near. He peered out at the lone figure. To his surprise, she was looking straight at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then softly, in broken human words, she said, "Protector." Ryan froze. She knew who he was. She knew what he had done. He could not answer with her language, so he only placed a hand on his chest and gave a small nod. Her glowing eyes softened. She gave a slight bow of her head, then turned her gaze back to the stars. The next morning, tension filled the camp. Orders came from higher command. The child was to be transferred away for study. Many soldiers nodded in agreement, but Ryan's stomach twisted. Study in war often meant the child would never see freedom again. When he heard, his first thought was not of disobeying orders, but of the mother outside. What would she do if they took her child? Would this be the spark that pulled the Zoran into another assault? And what would that say about humanity, if compassion was lost so easily? The commander prepared a convoy. The child was brought out, its small form trembling. Ryan could not bear the sight. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed across the camp. It was not an alarm. It was a voice, her voice carrying through the walls. You cannot take what is bound. If you try, you break more than law. You break honor. The soldiers stiffened. The commander snarled and ordered the gates to open so the convoy could move. But before it could, the ground itself seemed to hum. Strange energy rippled in the air. From the hills behind her, faint lights appeared. Zoran warriors stood in the distance, silent, watching. They did not advance, but their presence alone was enough to freeze every hand. The mother lifted her arm, and the lights dimmed again. She had called them only to remind the humans that she was not alone. Then she lowered her hand and spoke once more. Protect or choose. Ryan's chest tightened. The entire camp turned to him. His choice, his action, had led to this moment. He had shielded the child out of instinct, but now that single act was changing the course of two peoples. His mouth went dry. The commander's glare bore into him, demanding loyalty. The child's wide glowing eyes looked at him with hope. The mother's gaze waited with patience, certain he already knew the answer. Ryan stood still, heart pounding, knowing that no matter what he chose, his life would never again be the same. The sun rose over the broken colony world, casting long shadows across the outpost walls. The air was heavy with silence, a silence that did not bring peace. Everyone in the camp felt the weight of the strange standoff. Outside the gate stood the tall Zoran mother, waiting patiently. Inside, soldiers moved with nervous energy, unsure if the next moment would bring battle or something else. Ryan had not slept. His mind circled endlessly around the same thoughts. He had shielded a child, and now the child's mother claimed him by her people's law. The humans saw that as nonsense, even dangerous. The Zoran saw it as binding, and Ryan was trapped in the middle. When morning drills began, the commander gathered the soldiers. His voice was sharp, carrying across the camp. The alien woman will not move. She claims one of ours belongs to her people. This is trickery. Do not be fooled. She is waiting for weakness. We will hold until command gives orders. The soldiers shouted agreement, but their voices lacked fire. Many of them had seen the mother standing outside through the night, motionless, unarmed, watching the stars. She did not look like a trickster. She looked like someone who had already made her choice. After the briefing, Ryan felt eyes on him. Whispers followed him wherever he walked. Some called him brave, others reckless, some even traitor. His squad mates did not speak to him as before. Even Dorn, who had always been firm but fair, looked at him with cold distance now. Only the child offered any comfort. The small Zoran was kept in the holding shelter, guarded but unharmed. Whenever Ryan passed by, the child reached out, pressing its small hands to the barrier. It did not cry. It only watched him with those glowing blue eyes that seemed to ask questions without words. Why am I here? Why are you different from the others? Ryan would crouch down, placing his hand against the glass. It's going to be all right, he whispered, though he did not know if the child understood. In truth, he was not sure of his own words. By midday, tension grew worse. Scouts reported more Zoran gathering in the distant hills, though they did not advance. The mother had not moved, but her silent presence was enough to hold an entire human outpost in fear. That evening, the commander called Ryan to the command hall. The room was filled with officers, their eyes sharp and questioning. The commander leaned forward, voice low and edged. Do you understand what you've done? You gave the enemy a claim over you. You gave them a reason to stand outside our gates without firing a shot. This entire camp is held hostage by one alien woman because of your actions. Ryan stood straight, forcing calm into his voice. I saved a child. That is all I did. The commander slammed a hand on the table. That is not all. They see more in it. They see weakness. They see division. Another officer, older and quieter, raised a hand. Or maybe they see something else. They see a human capable of mercy. The room grew tense. No one liked the idea, but no one could deny it. The commander leaned back, his eyes narrowing. Listen, Ryan, you have a choice. Either you denounce their claim and prove your loyalty, or you risk tearing this camp apart. Ryan felt the weight of the words press on him. Denounce. Loyalty. The two sides inside him pulled hard. He thought of his squad, his duty, the oath he had taken to protect humans. Then he thought of the child trembling in his arms as he shielded it from gunfire. He thought of the mother's calm gaze, not filled with hatred but with respect. Finally, he said quietly, I cannot deny what I did. I will not call it wrong. The commander's face darkened, but he did not answer. He only dismissed Ryan with a sharp wave of his hand. That night, Ryan sat alone by the outer wall. The stars stretched wide above him, silent witnesses to the struggle below. Then softly he heard a voice, Protector. He turned. The mother stood just beyond the wall, her glowing eyes steady on him. The guards shifted nervously but did not fire. Ryan stepped closer to the gate, heart pounding. He did not know how much of his language she understood, but he spoke anyway. Why me? Why call me your kin? Her voice was calm, her words broken but clear enough. You took my child into your arms. You made yourself shield. In our law, shield is family. Family cannot be broken. Ryan swallowed hard. But I am human. You are Zoran. We are at war. She tilted her head as if studying him. War is noise. Bond is truth. I am Lura. You are Protector. Her name struck something inside him. It was not just a title now. She was real as any soldier beside him, and she was asking him to accept a bond he barely understood. Before he could answer, shouts rose behind him. Soldiers dragged him away from the gate, warning him not to speak with the enemy. Yet as they pulled him back, his eyes met Lura's once more. She did not look angry. She only looked certain, as if the choice was already written. The following days passed in uneasy rhythm. The child remained in the shelter, growing restless. The humans debated whether to move it to another base. The Zoran remained in the hills, neither attacking nor retreating. The camp lived in constant tension, waiting for something to break. For Ryan, the hardest part was the distance growing between him and his comrades. Where once they had laughed and shared stories, now they spoke in whispers when he entered the room. He had become a symbol, though he had never wanted to be one. One evening, Dorn finally approached him. The older soldier's face was lined with conflict. You know they don't trust you anymore, Dorn said. Ryan nodded. I know. Then why hold on to this? Why risk everything for one child that isn't even ours? Ryan looked at the horizon where the Zoran fires glowed faintly in the distance. Because if we lose our humanity, what are we fighting for? If a child's life means nothing, then all the rest means nothing too. Dorn sighed, shaking his head. You're going to tear yourself in two, Ryan. And maybe you'll tear us with you. That night, Ryan returned to the shelter. The child pressed its hand against the glass, and he pressed his hand to meet it. In that silent moment, he understood the truth. He was already torn. His life no longer belonged fully to one world. It stood balanced between two. Outside, beyond the walls, Lura still waited, her eyes fixed on the camp, never leaving, never faltering. She knew patience was stronger than force. And slowly, her patience was changing everything. Ryan closed his eyes. He did not know what the next day would bring, anger, betrayal, or understanding. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The path he had chosen could not be walked back. He was no longer only a soldier of Earth. He was also Protector, bound by a bond older than war itself. And soon both sides would force him to choose which world he truly belonged to. The colony sky was dark with storm clouds. Winds carried dust across the barren ground, hiding shapes and shadows. The human outpost stood tense, its walls lit by searchlights. Every soldier inside waited for orders, but no orders came. Command had gone silent, unsure what to do with the strange situation. A Zoran mother outside their gates, her child inside their shelter, and Ryan caught between both worlds. For days the standoff had not changed. But on the fourth morning everything shifted. Scouts ran back to camp, their voices urgent. Movement in the east. A Zoran war party is heading this way. Not a few, dozens, maybe more. The camp exploded with alarm. Sirens blared. Soldiers rushed to the walls, weapons ready. The commander's voice shouted above the noise. Prepare for battle. No one leaves their post. Rian felt his heart sink. He had hoped the waiting game would end with peace, not more blood. He rushed to the shelter where the child was kept. The little one pressed its hands against the glass, frightened by the noise. Rian whispered softly, "I'll keep you safe." But even as he spoke, he knew how fragile that promise was. From the walls, soldiers shouted that the Zoran mother still stood at her place. She did not move, though the war party approached from the east. It was clear now that she was not their leader. She was something different, and that difference gave Ryan a single thin thread of hope. The storm hit just as the battle began. Lightning cracked across the sky as the first blasts struck the walls. The outpost shook under the assault. Soldiers fired back, filling the air with noise and light. Rian stayed near the shelter, torn in two. He could not leave the child, yet he could not stand by while his comrades fought. His mind screamed with confusion until he heard a voice, "My protector." He spun. Through the dust and lightning, he saw her. Laura, the mother, stood just outside the gates, calm in the storm. Her glowing eyes locked onto him. She raised one hand, and though her words were few, they cut through the chaos. "Come. Trust." Ryan's breath caught. She was offering him something. A path, maybe even a way to stop what was happening. But to leave the camp now, to step outside the gates, would be seen as betrayal. He hesitated only a moment. Then he made his choice. Ryan unlocked the shelter and lifted the child into his arms. The guards shouted, but before they could stop him, the ground shook with another blast, throwing dust and debris into the air. In the confusion, he slipped away, moving toward the gates. Soldiers called his name, but he did not look back. At the outer wall, he shouted over the storm, "Open the gate!" The guard stared at him in disbelief. "Are you mad? You'll be killed out there." Ryan held the child close, his voice firm. "Open it. She won't harm us." The guards hesitated. Then as another blast shook the wall, the gate creaked open just wide enough for one man to slip through. Ryan ran out, carrying the child into the storm. The wind whipped around him, stinging his face with dust. He could barely see more than a few steps ahead. But Laura was there, her tall figure glowing faintly in the storm's light. She stepped forward and placed a hand gently on the child's head. The little one clung to her side, safe at last. Rian expected her to turn and leave, but instead she looked at him. "Protector stays," she said simply. Then she pointed toward the east, where flashes of battle lit the horizon. Help both, her meaning was clear. She was not asking him to fight for Zoran or humans. She was asking him to protect lives, no matter which side they came from. Rian's heart pounded. "How? They will never listen to me." Her eyes glowed brighter. "They will. You carry bond. Bond is stronger than war." Before he could answer, another blast tore through the storm, striking near the camp. Cries of pain rose. Soldiers were pinned down, and Zoran warriors advanced through the dust. Ryan looked back at the outpost, then at Laura. The choice was no longer a thought. It was action. He ran toward the battlefield. The storm made it hard to see, but he pushed forward, waving his arms, shouting, "Stop, stop this!" His voice was lost in the storm at first, but then something strange happened. Some Zoran warriors recognized the child's scent still on his uniform. They paused, uncertain. Human soldiers saw the pause and lowered their fire for a moment. That single heartbeat of hesitation was enough for Ryan to act. He dragged two wounded humans out of the open, pulling them behind cover. Then, without stopping, he turned and shielded two small Zoran younglings caught between the lines. He covered them with his own body as blasts struck nearby. Both sides saw him. Both sides saw that he did not choose one over the other. He protected all. The storm began to fade. The fighting slowed. Murmurs spread through the soldiers on both sides. A human protecting Zoran. A Zoran mother standing still outside the gates, calling no attack. And one man caught between them, proving with action what words could not. By nightfall, the battle had stopped. Not because of orders, but because no one wanted to fire again. The soldiers returned to their lines, carrying their wounded, whispering about what they had seen. When the storm fully cleared, Ryan sat on the ground, exhausted, dust covering his face. The rescued humans and Zoran younglings rested near him. Laura stood over them, her gaze calm, her presence strong. "You see," she said softly, "trust is stronger than fear." Ryan looked up at her, his voice hoarse. "But they don't trust me. They don't even trust each other." Laura shook her head. They saw. Seeds are planted. Seeds grow in time. Her words settled deep inside him. Seeds. He had not ended the war. Not even close. But he had planted something. A question in the minds of both armies, a question that could not be erased. When he returned to the outpost, soldiers stared in silence. Some with anger, some with awe, many with confusion. The commander tried to question him, but the words rang hollow now. Everyone had seen. Everyone knew. That night, Rian sat alone, looking at the stars. He felt the weight of his choices heavier than ever. He had saved lives, yes, but he had also broken trust with his own people. Would they ever forgive him? Would they ever see what he was trying to show? And yet, despite the fear and doubt, he felt a spark of hope. For the first time, both humans and Zoran had paused, not because of strength, but because of compassion. The test was not over. The hardest part was still to come. But Rian knew now that he was not alone. The child trusted him. Lura trusted him. And maybe, just maybe, others would learn to trust as well. As the winds quieted and the stars shone brighter, Rian closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new trials. Tomorrow would force him to stand between worlds once again. But tonight, for the first time, he believed that even in war, humanity could be more than survival. Humanity could be a bridge. The morning sun rose slowly over the shattered colony. Its light spilled across the camp, illuminating dust-covered soldiers, broken walls, and the scattered remains of the battlefield from the night before. Silence hung in the air, but it was a tense silence. Every human and every Zoran seemed to wait, unsure what would happen next. Ryan woke early, feeling the weight of what had passed. The night had been quiet, but he had not slept. He thought of the child now safe and of Laura, standing beyond the walls as still and calm as a mountain. He knew today would bring a choice, a challenge that would decide not only his fate but the future of the colony itself. The outpost stirred. Soldiers prepared for inspection. Whispers filled the halls. Some were angry at Ryan, still seeing him as reckless. Others had begun to question what he had done, unsure if bravery could also mean mercy. Ryan moved quietly, walking toward the shelter where the child waited. The small one smiled faintly when he approached, pressing its glowing hands against the barrier. "You're safe," he whispered softly. "I promise." The little Zoran blinked its bright blue eyes at him. In that moment, Rian felt the quiet weight of responsibility again. He had protected the child from harm, but protecting it now meant protecting hope itself. Outside, a faint shimmer of light appeared. Laura had arrived again, moving closer to the camp. Her presence was commanding yet calm. She did not shout or demand. She simply stood, her eyes glowing, and waited. The soldiers noticed her immediately, stiffening at the sight. The child cried out softly in recognition, and Ryan felt his heart tighten. The commander approached the gates, flanked by a group of officers. His face was stern, his voice firm. "This is your final warning," he said to Laura. "Leave now or we will act. No threats will be tolerated." Laura did not flinch. Her glowing eyes swept across the camp, finally resting on Ryan. "Protector has been chosen," she said. "By law, by bond, by courage. He is family. He belongs to my people." The words rippled through the humans. Some laughed in disbelief, some shook their heads, and some stared in awe. They had seen his actions, the way he had risked himself for both human and Zoran lives. They could not deny what had happened. The commander's hand tightened on his weapon. "You are claiming him? This is absurd. He is human, part of our forces. He owes loyalty to us." Ryan stepped forward, his chest rising with steady breaths. His voice was calm yet carried strength. "I do not fight to destroy," he said. "I fight to protect. I do not belong only to one side. I belong to those who need saving." A hush fell over the camp. Soldiers and officers alike stared at him. Even Dorn, who had once looked at him with cold suspicion, now studied him silently, eyes searching for weakness, but finding none. Laura stepped closer to the gates, and the air seemed to shimmer around her. She looked at Ryan and spoke softly, her words clear despite the distance. "You carried my child. You risked everything for life. That is our bond. You are now protector of both worlds, whether you choose it or not." Rian felt the weight of her words, protector of both worlds. He understood now that his actions had changed something larger than himself. He could not undo the bond, nor could he deny it. But he also could not abandon his human comrades who had fought beside him and yet did not understand his choice. He took a deep breath and turned to face the commander. "I will not fight for one side to destroy the other. I will fight for life itself." Every life, the commander's face hardened. He opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by a cry from the child. The little Zoran pressed itself against the gate, glowing eyes wide. It looked at Ryan and Lura with trust and hope. Ryan understood in that instant that the choice was clear. He stepped forward and placed a hand against the barrier, not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as protector. Lura mirrored the gesture on the other side, and the child squeezed between them, safe and unharmed. The camp fell silent. No one moved. The humans had seen courage, mercy, and strength all in one man. The Zoran had seen trust, loyalty, and compassion. For a moment, all hatred seemed to fade. The commander finally lowered his weapon, not because he agreed, but because he saw that the story had changed. The humans had followed orders for war before, but this was something different. This was action beyond command, beyond fear, beyond survival. This was humanity. Soldiers whispered among themselves. Some nodded at Ryan, their respect growing. Others still hesitated, unsure if they could accept this new path. Ryan ignored them. His eyes were on the child, on Lura, on the future he could help shape. Lura spoke again. You see, Protector, life is stronger than war. Mercy is stronger than fear. Trust is stronger than power. You carry this truth with you. Will you stand with it? Ryan nodded firmly. I will. I stand with life. I stand with all who need protection. A soft wind blew through the camp. Dust lifted into the sky, sunlight glinting across the broken walls. For the first time in many days, the air felt lighter. Soldiers lowered their weapons. The Zoran warriors in the distance remained still, waiting. The child smiled, tiny hands reaching toward Ryan. He knelt and lifted the child into his arms, holding it close. Its small warmth reminded him of the choices he had made, the risks he had taken, and the life he had saved. He looked at Lura, and she nodded once. No words were needed. Their bond was now unspoken yet unbreakable. The commander finally spoke, voice heavy but measured. You have changed something here, Ryan. I may not understand it fully, but I see it. You have reminded us what courage truly means. Ryan stood tall, shoulders steady, carrying the weight of both worlds. Courage is not just fighting, he said. It is choosing mercy when all others choose fear. It is protecting life when survival seems impossible. That is what I fight for. The soldiers listened. Slowly, some nodded, some lowered their weapons, and some whispered words of respect. Even Dorn, who had once doubted him, gave a small bow of acknowledgement. Outside the gates, Lura watched. The child in Ryan's arms clung gently to her protector, safe and unharmed. The sun rose higher, and the storm of doubt and fear lifted. For now there was no war in that place, only a bridge between two worlds held together by courage, trust, and the heart of one human who chose to protect rather than destroy. As Ryan looked across the camp, he realized something important. Being a protector meant more than one action, more than one choice. It meant standing for truth, for compassion for all who could not defend themselves, and it meant carrying a bond that could not be broken, even in the heart of war. He knew there would be challenges ahead. Humans would question him. Zoran would test him. The path of protector was not safe, easy, or simple. But for the first time he felt certain he could not save everyone, but he could make a difference, and sometimes that was enough. Lura stepped closer, speaking softly in words he could understand now. The bond is yours, Protector. Walk your path. We will walk together. Ryan nodded, feeling strength flow through him. The child's small hands clutched at his uniform. He held it close, knowing that this life, like so many others, was now in his care. And as the sun rose fully over the colony, he took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future might bring. For the first time in the war, Ryan realized the truth of humanity. Courage and compassion could shine brighter than weapons. Hope could rise higher than fear. And one person's choice could change the fate of many. And with that understanding, he walked confidently, protector of life, standing tall between two worlds, carrying a bond that could never be broken.